there, Jennifer here. Today I'm excited to introduce you to the Trinity Stitch. The Trinity Stitch is a beautiful textured cluster stitch that creates a dense reversible fabric resembling tiny stars or flowers. It gets its name from the single crochet 3 together stitch that is used to create each cluster. This stitch is especially well suited for blankets, pillows, and dishcloths, as well as cozy cold weather accessories like this hooded scarf and mittens. I'll leave links to these patterns and more in the description below. In this video, I'll show you how to work Trinity Stitch in rows using 2 common methods. We'll also take a closer look at stitch placement, how to identify where to make the next stitch, and what to watch for if your stitches become misaligned. Trinity Stitch is suitable for confident beginner crocheters. The single crochet 3 together cluster may seem a little tricky at first, but once you understand where to place your hook, the stitch quickly becomes rhythmic and easy to work. At its core, Trinity Stitch is made by alternating single crochet 3 together clusters and chain 1 spaces. To create each cluster, we'll work a single crochet 3 together across 3 consecutive stitches, while sharing the first leg of the stitch with the last stitch made. There are 2 common ways to work Trinity Stitch in rows. Both create the same basic fabric, but they begin and end the rows differently. You'll find both of these approaches used in crochet patterns, including some of my own designs, so I want to show you how each one works. Let's start with the first method. The Trinity Stitch pattern is worked over a multiple of 2 plus 1 stitches, plus 1 for the foundation chain. To put it simply, you'll begin with an even number of chains, which will give you an odd number of stitches. I'll start by making a chain 10. So I'll make a slip knot and place it on my hook, and then I'll just chain 10. And I like to work into the back bars of my chain for this first row, so I'm just going to flip over my chain, and there's the back bars. We're going to start by making a single crochet into the second chain from our hook. So 1, 2, right there. Next, we're going to work our first Trinity Stitch, our first single crochet 3 together. So I'll insert my hook into the same chain as that last single crochet that I made. Yarn over and draw through. And then I'll insert my hook into the next chain. Yarn over and draw through that as well. And insert my hook into the next chain. Yarn over and draw through. I have 4 loops on my hook at this point. I'm going to yarn over and draw through all 4. And that completes my first single crochet 3 together. And then we'll just chain 1 to complete the Trinity Stitch. Let's do that again. So we're going to work our next single crochet 3 together, starting with the last chain that we worked into with our last single crochet 3 together. So right here, insert your hook into that chain, yarn over and draw through, then insert your hook into the next chain, yarn over and draw through, and insert your hook into the next chain, yarn over and draw through. You have 4 loops on your hook, yarn over and draw through all 4. That completes your next single crochet 3 together. Go ahead and chain 1 to complete the Trinity Stitch. Now you want to make these chains slightly loose, just on the looser side, because we're going to be working into them in the next row. I'll do this one more time a little bit faster. So now we've reached the end of the row and we just have 2 more chains left. We'll work our last single crochet 3 together, starting with the last stitch that we worked into with the last leg of that single crochet 3 together. So into that chain, I'll insert my hook, yarn over and draw through, and then insert my hook into the next chain, yarn over and draw through, And finally, I'll insert my hook into that last chain, yarn over and draw through. 4 loops on my hook, yarn over and draw through all 4. To end our row, we're going to work a single crochet in this last chain that we worked into. So you won't make a chain after your last single crochet 3 together. You'll just make that last single crochet 3 together and then work a single crochet in that same last chain. So it's a little bit something different, but just something you have to remember for the end of your row. But as you recall, it's also what we did at the beginning of the row. We didn't have a chain between our first single crochet and the next single crochet 3 together, just a single crochet on either end. So that is row 1 complete. I'm going to chain 1 and turn my work to begin row 2. We'll start by making a single crochet in that first single crochet of our row. Now, just as I mentioned a moment ago, we're not going to chain 1. We're going to go straight to making our first single crochet 3 together. So I'll insert my hook in this first single crochet, yarn over the one that I just worked into, so same one as that first single crochet that we made. Insert my hook into that stitch, yarn over and draw through, insert my hook into the next stitch, yarn over and draw through, and then insert my hook into the next chain, yarn over and draw through. So you have 4 loops on your hook, yarn over and draw through all 4 loops. That completes our first single crochet 3 together of this row. Then chain 1 to complete the Trinity stitch. Let's do that again. So again, we're going to be working across the same chain as the last chain we worked into, the next stitch, and the next chain. So I'll insert my hook in that chain that we just worked into, yarn over and draw through, insert my hook into the next stitch, yarn over and draw through, and insert my hook into the next chain, yarn over and draw through. I have 4 loops on my hook, yarn over and draw through all 4 of them, and then chain 1. I'll do that again rather quickly just to get us to the end of the row. Remember to make your chains rather loose so that you can work into them in the next row. I've gotten to the end of the row now, and I just have these last 2 stitches to work into. So I'm going to insert my hook in the last chain that we just worked into with our last single crochet 3 together, yarn over and draw through, insert my hook into the next stitch, yarn over and draw through, and I'll insert my hook into this last stitch, yarn over and draw through, and then yarn over and draw through all 4 loops on my hook. And just like our first row, we're not going to chain 1 after making this last single crochet 3 together. We'll just make a single crochet in the last stitch, the same stitch as the last leg of the last single crochet 3 together we just made. And that is row 2 complete. You'll continue repeating that row to create your Trinity stitch fabric. So with this method, just keep in mind that each row begins and ends with a single crochet. I'll share a stitch chart here just to show how that works. Each of the single crochets is highlighted in red. Of the 2 methods that I'm sharing with you today, this is probably the more common one. In fact, if you're starting your first Trinity stitch project, this is the method that I would recommend you use. It's just a little bit easier to execute, and like I said, it shows up in patterns a little more often. But this next variation that I'm going to show you, the next method does show up sometimes, and it does have its place, so I wanted to make sure to include it. In this next variation, the rows are actually going to begin and end with a single crochet 2 together and a chain 1 instead of the single crochet alone. This variation has the same stitch multiple of 2 plus 1 stitches, plus 1 for the foundation chain, so we can chain an even number here as well. I'll do the same thing that I did before, and I'll chain 10. So go ahead and once again make a slip knot and place it on your hook, and then chain 10. And just as before, I'll work into the back bars. I'm just going to flip it over. And now instead of starting with a single crochet in our second chain from hook, I'm going to start with a single crochet 2 together. So I'll insert my hook into that second chain from my hook. So again, there's your first one, there's the second one. Insert my hook into that second chain, yarn over and draw through, and then insert my hook into the next chain, yarn over and draw through. I have 3 loops on my hook, yarn over and draw through all 3. And that completes our first single crochet 2 together. And then I'll chain 1. And we can just continue working single crochet 3 togethers across the chain as we did before. I'll insert my hook in this same chain as the last stitch we made, yarn over and draw through, insert my hook into the next chain, yarn over and draw through, and insert my hook into the next chain, yarn over and draw through. I have 4 loops on my hook, yarn over and draw through all 4, and then chain 1. And I'll go ahead and just continue working my single crochet 3 togethers, my Trinity stitches, all the way across. I've reached the end of the row, and I just have this last chain to work into. Notice how I made a chain 1 after my last single crochet 3 together to complete the Trinity stitch. And now I'll be working a single crochet 2 together across this last chain that we worked into with our last single crochet 3 together and the last chain. So I'll insert my hook in that same chain as the last leg of our last single crochet 3 together, yarn over and draw through, and then insert my hook into the last chain, yarn over and draw through. So I have 3 loops on my hook, yarn over and draw through all 3 loops to complete that last single crochet 2 together. And that's row 1 complete with our second method. I'm going to chain 1 and turn to begin row 2. We'll begin by working a single crochet 2 together across this first stitch and this next chain. So I'll insert my hook into that first stitch, yarn over and draw through, insert my hook into this first chain, yarn over and draw through. I have 3 loops on my hook, yarn over and draw through all 3 loops to complete that single crochet 2 together, and then chain 1. We'll work our next single crochet 3 together across this chain that we just worked into, the next stitch and the next chain, just as we did before with our first method. Nothing about the middle of the row is different. It's just the ends of the row where we're changing things around a little bit. So I'll go ahead and work my way across this row till we get to the end so I can show you how we end the rows there. Okay, so I'm working into this last chain, and then I'm going to chain 1 as we normally do to end our Trinity stitch. And now you see I have just 1 more stitch at the end here. I'm going to work a single crochet 2 together, working in the last chain that I worked into and this last stitch. So insert my hook into that last, or into the same chain as the last stitch, yarn over and draw through, insert my hook into the last stitch, yarn over and draw through, 3 loops on my hook, yarn over and draw through all 3. And that completes row 2 using our second method. You'll continue repeating that row to create your Trinity stitch fabric. So again, that's using a single crochet 2 together and chain 1 to begin our row, and then a chain 1 and single crochet 2 together at the end of the row. So in this variation, again, I'm going to show you a little stitch chart here and highlight the difference where we have single crochet 2 together and chain 1 at the beginning of the row, and chain 1 and single crochet 2 together at the end of the row. As you can see, both methods create the same textured Trinity Stitch fabric. In fact, if you take a closer look, this was made with method 1 and this one was made with method 2. You can kind of see a subtle difference in how the edges look. But the real difference lies in how the rows begin and end. And while either method can be used on its own, those edge differences become more important when you're shaping a project or combining Trinity Stitch with other stitch patterns. Regardless of which method you use, stitch placement matters. Each single crochet 3 together cluster is worked across the same sequence of stitches: the chain from the previous stitch, the next single crochet 3 together, and the next chain. Because the stitches overlap, maintaining the correct stitch placement is essential. Missing a stitch, accidentally working a single crochet 2 together instead of a single crochet 3 together, or forgetting a chain 1 can cause the stitch pattern to become misaligned. To identify where the next stitch will go, remember that the first loop is always drawn up in the same chain as the last stitch worked. The second loop is drawn up in the next stitch, which is often slightly larger and looser than the chains on either side. The third loop is always drawn up in the following chain. Once you recognize this sequence, finding the correct stitch placement becomes much easier. It's a good idea to check your work periodically as you crochet. Misplaced stitches often create a visible line of holes or gaps in the fabric. If you notice a line of holes forming, check that each single crochet 3 together is worked across all 3 required stitches and followed by a chain 1. Now that you know how to work Trinity Stitch, identify the correct stitch placement, and check your work for misaligned stitches, you're ready to start using this versatile stitch in your own projects. What will you make with it first? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your ideas. And if you'd like to continue exploring Trinity Stitch, be sure to join me next time when I show you how to work Trinity Stitch in the round. Until then, happy stitching! Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more crochet techniques, tips, and tutorials, and check out the links in the video notes for more ways to find me and my patterns.